In childbirth, conscious surrender to that vortex of energy brings an experience of profound grace.
For the most part, I was squatting, and in between, oftentimes I'd actually stand up, especially later on as it progressed and it got more intense. Like I'd stand up and I'd just spiral my hips, and that's what would move the energy, because there was so much energy that would collect in my hips that all I could do was just spiral them to move it through. Otherwise, it could be translated as pain. Like I felt that fine line where I had a choice. Like I could translate the sensation as pain and pleasure, and I just kept choosing to move it through, which kept it as pleasure. And there was a moment that Nassim and I had where we had the sweetest, most mushy kiss, and I felt that kiss go all the way through me, through every cell, through my core, and just melt me. And after that kiss, I felt so soft, and through each rush that I was having, I was actually purring through each, what they call contractions, but in no way did I feel contracted. I felt so expanded. And then after the purrs, like they just kept coming, and I just felt softer and softer till I just felt them coming through as rolling orgasms, to the point where I was crying. I mean, it was so overwhelming, the energy. It was so amazing.
We come into this world wide open to give and receive love. And when that is our primal experience, our nervous system is hardwired for the undeniable rightness of being. If our early impressions are anything less than loving, then that anything imprints in our nervous system as a valid experience of love, regardless of how painful those experiences might have been. And throughout our life, we will subconsciously recreate the conditions and feelings that were imprinted at birth and early childhood, because in spite of all logic, that is our comfort zone. The dramatic journey from the womb out into the world, whatever form it takes, reinforces that imprint. In addition, our early impressions in life also have an enormous impact on our future capacity to experience intimacy and love.
And so what does recovery look like? I'm going to click.
Hi Shay.
Hi.
How old are you today?
10 years old.
And can you tell us what it felt like to have autism and Asperger's syndrome?
I got tummy aches a lot. I got sick a lot. I had social difficulties. I had trouble at school. I was obsessed over cameras, flashing lights, water, light bulbs, toilets, and computers. I got mad a lot and angry easily, and I stimmed on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel today?
Recovered, happy, I stopped stimming, and I'm not obsessed over anything.
So do you feel like you've recovered?
Yes.
Yay! Should we say thank you to Carrie Rivera?
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you, Carrie Rivera.
I transferred in the middle of the year, and I had to catch up on 6 months of a biology course that was for that sophomore year in high school, and I had basically a week to master 6 months of a subject that I was already weak in and I didn't understand very well, and that I was going to have to relearn everything in a very short period of time. And at this period of time is when my mother and Patrick got together, and I met him, and he, as some kind of a miracle, handed me the neurophone, and he said, study your book, learn your lessons with your teacher after school with this device. And I kind of looked at him like he was crazy, and I said, what else did I have to lose? So I used the device while I was studying. And within 2 weeks, of studying this book, my textbook for the biology course, I became the best student in the class. And this is me being a D student, basically, in anything having to do with math or science. And all of a sudden I mastered the course and I became my teacher's best student. And it affected not only that particular class, but all of my academia from there on. And the most significant part of the whole experience was the fact that I not only became able to comprehend and understand these subjects that were so difficult for me for so many years, but they became meaningful for me, and I became inspired by them. And it changed the way that I was able to study and learn, and I went from having really low self-esteem in school to becoming a really good student and loving to learn and becoming effortless and easy. And now, as an adult, this was many years ago, now as an adult, I use this device whenever I can because the opportunity for introspection and meditation and centeredness it comes so naturally when I'm using it. There's no effort involved. So really, this neurophone changed my life.
Pain's bad. Okay, but to treat it with a poison that deteriorates the joint is illogical. That doesn't make sense. There's a number of natural anti-inflammatories, and one of the best is to have healthy blood and clean the blood. And this is where minerals, like I know you're involved in ancient purities, phenomenal mineral. I mean, you increase the minerals in your system, that has an anti-inflammatory effect. If you increase the nutrients in your system, such as healthy water, okay, healthy plant-based proteins, a plant-based diet, fantastic. However, if your diet is high in polyunsaturated fats, such as soy products or even nuts and seeds, as beneficial as they are, they do have polyunsaturated fats, and if your diet is high in those, they can actually cause the blood cells to stick together. And that decreases synovial fluid production. Synovial fluid, it's actually the fluid that surrounds the joint capsule. And this is where most joints, and I'm talking finger joints, knee joints, joints of the spine, actually get their nutrients through healthy blood. So cleaning the blood with a plant-based diet, soluble fibers through vegetable juicing, natural anti-inflammatories such as fresh fruits, vegetables, bromelain, which is an enzyme from pineapple, fantastic anti-inflammatory, omega-3s, excellent anti-inflammatory, vitamin C, excellent anti-inflammatory. And all of those have pain-relieving properties without destroying the joint. So you can be comfortable and your body's not going to deteriorate. So if you have a doctor that's prescribing nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, firing the doctor is probably the best first course. And then cleaning up the diet. And then this is the interesting part. Heat, moist heat on the joint is, and I know a lot of doctors will say, oh no, it's inflammation, use ice. Oh, however, let's look at the logic behind that, because that's physiologically, that doesn't make sense. If you have a joint that's injured, that's hurt, if you put moist heat on it, and moist heat, you want to use moist heat over dry heat. Moist heat actually penetrates. Now, if you put a hot cloth on a joint and take it away, you'll see that the joint is actually red. So what you're doing, you're tricking the body into increasing blood flow to that area, which is going to increase the metabolic processes. You're actually going to increase the healing in the joint. You're going to increase blood flow to that joint capsule. So you're actually increasing the lubricant and the nutrient called synovial fluid. So you're beginning to heal the joint using moist heat. And so, I mean, plant-based diet, moist heat, and then if you can find a corrective chiropractor to restore that nerve supply to the joint, and then restore any muscle imbalance or realign the joint, oh my gosh, you've initiated the healing process right away.
For every kilo of sodium bicarbonate, I would put a half a kilo in of citric acid. and then you have high technology medical baths. Sure, it's going to feel good. Yes, it's anti-aging and relaxing. You're going to sleep better and detoxifying. But it's really, it's medicine. It's like emergency room medicine. It's what you want to do if you have cancer. If you have a heart attack and you're not being, the ambulance isn't anywhere near, you should be either somebody lathering, covering your whole body with magnesium, or throwing you into a bath of magnesium and sodium bicarbonate. If anything natural is going to arrest the process or stabilize you, it's going to be something like that.
Heart attacks and strokes being two big examples of that, I think.
Yeah, the first thing is oxygen and magnesium. In the emergency room, they use magnesium injections. And when they do, they save people's life in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And if you inject it in the first 2 hours of a stroke, you avoid most of the damage of stroke. And they do that in the ambulances in Los Angeles. There's a test going on for years.
Yeah, they use magnesium sulfate, don't they, I think?
Yes, sulfate.
And magnesium sulfate has the wonderful pleasure that if you need to draw out a splinter, you can put on a paste of magnesium sulfate and draw splinters out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The amount of vitamin C varies, though. The sicker you are, the more you need. You don't take the amount of C that you think you should need. You take the amount that works. You take the amount that gets the job done. That amount could be higher than you ever imagined. When I had viral pneumonia, and that's what happens when you don't follow the rules, I got run down. I had viral pneumonia. Now, a friend of mine was an internist. I went to see him, and he said, "Here's an antibiotic." And I said, "Wait a minute, this is viral pneumonia, you told me." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, antibiotics don't work against viruses." He said, "No, that's for a secondary infection that might develop. There's really nothing I can give you for the virus except cough medicine and tell you to stay in bed for a couple weeks." So I thought to myself, all right, I'll try vitamin C. After all, Dr. Cathcart and Dr. Conner were curing pneumonia with it, and I have pneumonia. This is a perfect time to find out if this will work. Well, I ended up taking 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C every 6 minutes I was awake. No, that is not something that I misspoke on. I took 2,000 milligrams of C every 6 minutes I was awake. That's 20,000 milligrams an hour. Now, I had a terrible cough, and I had a very high fever. At 20,000 milligrams an hour, 2,000 milligrams every 6 minutes, in 3 hours, my fever came down 3 degrees, and my cough stopped. Now, that is quite impressive. Here's something even more amazing. A friend of mine who was, in fact, a healthcare provider had a baby who was about a year old, weighed in the neighborhood of 20 pounds. The child had been sick a lot. In the first year of its life, it had had 11 full courses of antibiotics in 12 months. Generally speaking, overuse of antibiotics is a big problem in and of itself. But aside from the fact that it fosters disease-resistant strains of microorganisms, let's just look at it from the point of view of the baby. If you give antibiotics over and over again, it's not going to work. If they don't work the first couple, 3 times, it's not going to work. You can beat a dead horse all day, and it's not going to get up. So just don't. What happened then was the father wondered what could be done for this child. Now, the child is very sick. It had a fever. It had mucus in its throat, and its eyes were runny. Its skin was red. It was coughing and sneezing. It was crying, and nobody had slept for I don't know how many nights. The child was under the care of a pediatrician. They were doing everything that you could. It wasn't working. So in our conversation, I mentioned, well, have you tried high doses of vitamin C? He said, I'll try anything. So I told him about it, my own experiences with it. And he talked to me about the saturation. He said, well, how much? I mean, this is a baby. I said, I really don't know. Why don't you do the best you can, give the child as much C as you can, and give it enough to get better, but not so much as causes loose stool. And he said, well, how do I get into a baby? I said, well, you could get chewable C and crush them into a powder, or get liquid C, or get crystals and put it in juice, any way at all. So he worked it out, and the bottom line is this. He gave this 20-pound baby 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C. The child slept through the night, and the symptoms were better that night. High doses of vitamin C work so well for colds and flu, and infectious illnesses that you would never even think of getting a flu shot ever again.
The three most devastating injuries to the human body, now devastating means it has repercussions in other parts of the body. The three most devastating injuries are a sprained ankle, a mammogram, and a root canal. Anybody here have those three? So here's the reason I asked for slacks. Is that it? That's about as far as it goes? Mm-hmm. Remember that. Okay, now grab the ankle. Now here's how you erase the muscle memory. She grabs the same spot that went weak in extension, and this time you do flexion. This is how you erase it. And then you want to, wait, keep touching it. You want to know were you successful or not? Here's how you find out. Head back. It's gone. Now, and what do you think it did to her here? Okay, now, let's go to this one. Remember head extension? Okay, keep your hand there. In fact, while we're at it, do both sides. Most people get mammograms on both sides. You know.
Generally speaking. Oh my God.
Okay, go to your tooth.
Better not do that one. We won't be able to take it.
Keep. Extension. Gone. Okay, so
what can I expect? What changes can I expect?
By the way, it doesn't just, I'll help you down.
Oh.
It doesn't just treat the right hip flexor only. It makes all the joints more limber. Not
Somebody comes in and they say, yep, you know, they come in, they sit down on a chair and they bend their knees and they sit down and they say, yeah, my doctor says they're bone on bone. And I got to tell you, rarely are knees bone on bone. If a knee joint is bone on bone, that knee does not bend. They cannot sit in a chair. Okay, when they sit down, their butt hits the chair and their legs are straight. And I have had, well, in fact, we have a testimonial of a patient who was 3 weeks from surgery. They were going to do a knee replacement, and he was told, yes, they're bone on bone. I take an x-ray of both his knees, and they're not. You can see a thin film of cartilage on there. I explained to the patient that since his knees bend, that they can help, or we can help them. I put ankle weights and had him sit and just had him dangle his legs just very, very gently with this 5-pound weight opening up the knee joint, and had him do it just for 5 minutes. We put a little moist heat on the knee, and then I said, walk around a bit. And his mouth hit the floor. He couldn't believe it because his knee pain was reduced about 90%. And I told him, I said, that's just temporary. We just tricked your body. We filled the joint up with fluid. It caused a little bit of pain relief, but that means the joint's still viable and it can heal. And sure enough, he canceled the surgery, and it's been, I think, 6 months now, and he's completely pain-free.
This gal was a new patient 2 days ago, yesterday. She's 41. It broke my heart to watch 11 medications, 41. They did so many injections with cortisone in her hips, they caused vascular necrosis in both hips, and she had to have both hips replaced. At what age? 39. It was from cortisone injections. And you said your hips didn't hurt. How many injections in your hips? 9 injections in each hip, and the hips didn't hurt. But by the time they got through, she had to have both hips replaced. This is the growing pain kid yesterday. So I just looked at this kid that's been through the MRIs and all this for knee pain. A typical, first thing you better ask him is how much pop they drink, because she sucked all the calcium out of her knees. That's okay, they all do. Your teeth will go next. Just ask me. Hold your arm tight. Hold tight. Hold tight. Now, hold tight. Now, could you come up here first? This is a patient. He's a new patient. Come on up here. I want to prove something. This is calcium. Okay, she has no calcium, but put your arms out. Hold, just like this. Hold. Now, this is a calcium test. Okay, that's a calcium test. Now, some of the pro teams I've done, the strength coach was this big, and they had this symptom. So to show you, if you can stand just like this, I want you to put your back right up against her. Now, to use other people, I have a ton of people who don't speak English. I got people that can't get a wheelchair. You have to have surrogate testing. There's got to be other ways to test people. If I put his back against her, I can check her calcium through him. But did you see how weak she was? There's no better example than this, is there? You stay right in her field. Put your arm out. That's her shoulders. That's how, now, you come on up here. You stand in front, hold tight. Now, I should be able to chin up. Back up against him. Hold tight. Now, if I went through, oh man, these things are all getting smaller by the day. All right, I can see it here. I want you to hold this. I want you to hold that. Hold tight. Now, if she had some, but to me, I had leg aches and nosebleeds my whole life. That deficiency I have $60,000 in implants in my mouth because my pediatrician never saw sore knees or nosebleeds before. It was a new thing to him. So as my teeth fell apart and my legs fell apart, the other guy's cramming mercury in my mouth. I'm getting my allergy shots and my vaccinations. I was 15 years old. I said, I ain't going back here. This has been a fun journey. I ain't been well since I was born. Thank you for coming up here. That's a calcium deficiency on a pop drinker. But today, I could send her to an orthopedic surgeon, and you watch the circus that this goes through because she drinks too much pop. It'll be 10 grand by the time they're through with this.
And so the receptionist, I'm in between patients, she said to me, Dr. Daniels, this guy's had a stroke last night and he wants to be seen. I said, well, tell him to go to the emergency room. It's an emergency. She says, no. He says he doesn't want to go to the hospital. He went there for his other strokes and he didn't like it. He wants to just see you and do whatever you can do. So he came in, sat down, told me the story. I said, okay, here's what you do. So, definitely you got to hydrate him, do the enemas, but you have to put him on milk thistle, pretty high dose, to really suck all that stuff right through the liver and help pull those impurities out and clean that blood out. And we got him from paralyzed on one side to, you just couldn't tell he had a stroke. It took about a week. No, it took us 2 weeks. We got him where he was brand spanking new and able to go back to his job as a bus driver.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, they had to give him his job back because he passed all the tests.
Oh,
and we controlled his blood pressure. He wasn't able to tolerate medication, so we controlled his blood pressure with walking and with herbs.
Stimulus. See, a chiropractor is not a muscle and bone doctor. They're nervous system doctors. And if you work with that control mechanism, the nervous system, you can affect massive changes in autoimmune disorders such as fibromyalgia. You can have the body self-regulate, such as blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar levels. And it all has to do that the body is self-regulating and self-healing, and it utilizes the nervous system, has the system that controls and coordinates every function of the body.
So would you like to tell us a few remarkable things?
Well, for Alzheimer's, for example, currently the medicines that are prescribed for Alzheimer's aren't very good. The absolute best you could hope for is to slow down the degeneration slightly. No drug can stop the progression of the disease, and absolutely no drug can reverse it. And the drugs that are available, they only work on about half the people that use them. And in those people that there is an effect, the effect only lasts from 6 to 12 months, and then it stops working, and then it's totally useless. Yet there are natural means that can stop the progression of Alzheimer's and even reverse it.
And perhaps we should, at this point, let the cat out of the bag for the benefit of our viewers. What is your number one Alzheimer's cure?
Coconut oil.
Precisely. An amazing food.
You were taking quite a few medications.
I was taking a lot of medications.
Why didn't you show us what you were taking?
You know, as I did say earlier, each time I look in this bag, it's shocking to think that I used to ingest this on a monthly basis.
So there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've got bottles of Oromorph here. This is liquid morphine.
So you got to the stage pretty much where you were, what, in bed most of the time and using a wheelchair?
Yes, when I did go out, I was in a wheelchair. That's impacted on my husband's back, bless him. I couldn't get up and down out of a chair on my own. I couldn't get in and out of bed on my own. It was getting to the stage where I was thinking, I don't want to come to a point where I'm asking him to help me on and off the toilet. And that was amongst the thoughts I was having when I made the decision, where I thought, I've had enough. I'm not, I'm just going to just bow out gracefully, because I didn't want to get to that point, neither for myself or for my husband. So, I did actually come to a decision that I had had enough. But I also need to say that I had a change of heart.
How close do you think you were to dying at that point?
I was very close. I had actually stopped eating for a couple of months, but I was drinking fluids and I was drinking cans of nourishment. That was keeping me going. But then it kind of got to the stage where when I ate, I was sick. And then it got to the stage that I couldn't actually get it down, never mind keep it down. So then it was just liquids. That's when things began to get a little bit sinister for me, because I knew what was happening. And I didn't actually quite know what to do about it. At that point in time, I really didn't think I had a choice. I'm not a stupid woman. I've just been a very busy woman, and I've had a lot to deal with. So I haven't had the time, or the wherewithal to have had opportunities to look into all this before now. And it's kind of just mad that it took for me to get to the verge before I have a learning curve and find out that there's an alternative way, But it's worked. Maybe I needed this for me to, for it to be a trigger for me to do something, because, I'd already kind of, I'd made decisions and, about who I wanted to have what and what I was going to say to the family. It was all there in my head, and I was going to write letters. It was all there. And I mean, my doctors weren't even aware, because, it's just a case of order your prescription online and then you go and pick it up. And
we spoke for an hour or so on Skype, and I recommended one or two things to you. And of those things, what do you think made the difference, and how quickly? How many days did it take? The
fulvic minerals, definitely. I felt that immediately. I really did feel that immediately. It was. How can I describe it? It was like some kind of vitamin boost. It felt like I'd had some kind of a tonic. I felt that within minutes, actually. I wouldn't say I was jumping around the room, but I did feel alert, and I felt positive for the first time in a long time. I actually felt positive. I mean, I would say mentally, for 20 years on the same antidepressant, and I was on the highest dose as well, the 60 milligrams. To start on the highest dose, I mean, I would have thought start on the low dose and work your way up if necessary, but it was one particular doctor said, maybe we could try you on 40 and, see how you go. And I was fine then on the 40, but, I would never have thought I could get off any of these. I mean, there was one of these in particular, the Ramipril, which is for high blood pressure. I happened to say, oh, how long will I have to take these? And the doctor said, oh, you'll be on these for the rest of your life. Well, when my Lugol's iodine arrived, the day I started to use the Lugol's iodine was the day I stopped taking the blood pressure medication. And with the use of a blood pressure machine that I have at home, my blood pressure's constantly fine. What they would say is perfectly okay. So I proved that one wrong, didn't I? It's lovely just to be able to wake up every morning now and not feel the way I used to feel, sad and, oh God, not another day to go through. When's it going to end? I mean, that's how I had got, when is it going to end? And hopefully let people know that, here I am and it's worked. And if it's worked for me, it can work for anybody, I'm sure.
So let's examine what the solutions were. That you started taking fulvic minerals.
Fulvic minerals, the MMS.
The MSM, which is sulfur.
Yes. Celtic salt.
Yeah, the Celtic salt obviously is vital to everybody.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Zinc and copper, which I'm still, all of the things that I started on, I'm still taking now, but I've added other things in. I've bought the ozone machine, the coconut oil. I can't sing the praises of that coconut oil enough. I slap it on all over, and I mean all over. I'm gargling with it, cooking with it, greasing hinges at home with it.
It's multi-purpose, clearly.
It is. It's absolutely marvellous.
And how about the magnesium? Did you notice
the magnesium is fantastic, Clive. I suffered for nearly 15 years with, I've never heard the term down here, but up in Scotland it's known as restless leg syndrome. And I used to read so many ailments to do with this in the Scottish Sunday Post. My folks used to send down to me after they'd read it, and it was always about restless leg syndrome. And this doctor that used to reply, he always did say magnesium. And I tried to get milk of magnesia because I thought that's what it meant, but I've found that even that now you can't get. The little blue bottle, you can't get it now. Gosh. Cream of magnesia, milk of magnesia, it's not there now. But as soon as I've tried all sorts of things now. Believe me, when you get restless leg syndrome at the best of times, it's an awful thing to have. It's like almost a cramp. You feel this urge, you need to run or stamp your feet. Now, when you've just come home from hospital with a knee replacement and you've got loads of stitches up the middle of your leg and you get this thing that you need to do this, it's not pleasant because the movements are there whether you want them there or not, and it hurt. But within moments of putting on the magnesium oil, I felt this just all the tension went from my back, from my legs. I went to bed that night, no restless legs, and I thought, nice, like a massage on the back. And it really, I thought, wow, yeah, it's so true. And the thing is, what I'm finding now is, it's not a cost a fortune type of thing to do because you're not getting cravings. If you're actually eating the right things and using supplements that are giving you the nutrients out of your food, you're not spending the same money you would on the crap that you would eat between meals or that the kids would be asking for between meals. Back in the summer, I had septic toes. I had toenail surgery. You'd think I wouldn't have gone back there, but I had to have it done. Unfortunately, the advice I was given was to keep the toenails covered at all times, which I did, and I kind of instinctively knew what was going to happen, and it did. They went septic. They were green. They were bright green. And with colloidal silver, drinking it and also applying it topically and using the helichrysum oil, that was sorted. Yeah, no, and that was without going near any medical professional. That was without going near antibiotics or antiseptics of any sort, just colloidal silver and the helichrysum oil.
And how quickly did the helichrysum oil stop the weeping and
the weeping within 2 or 3 days? I mean, they were very, very bad. They were really in a bad way. They were bright green with all this other ooze coming out of them, very swollen. Within 2 or 3 days, the actual weeping had stopped and they'd crusted over. And I was absolutely amazed that an oil, whether it was the oil or the colloidal silver or a combination of both and the drinking of it, I don't know, but all I know, it was phenomenal to see how they were, and they were throbbing and so painful, and you know, and it was just magical to see this happening before my eyes on a daily basis. It was incredible, really, you know. So, you know, it's not just about coming off all this lot because of arthritis and depression and the like. There's things out there available that can treat all sorts of ailments without having to visit the doctor.
Well, at the end of the day, we lose our health and we want our health back. And, you know, going to a doctor is fantastic, but they don't study health. And if we want our health back, we need to go to people who can give us health.
Absolutely.
And, the pain genie.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened when you tried that.
Again, I had never heard of anything like this. I went down to Brighton to hear you talk. Richard Cumbers was there doing a talk with the Pain Genie, and I was watching this very intently, and I was kind of, you know, thinking, I wonder, and I thought no more of it. And I'd sat there for a couple of hours listening to various speakers, and when I went to stand up, I couldn't stand up straight. The base of I was in so much pain. Dom, who was there as well, Dominic Spreadlove, he was, what's the matter? I said to him, oh my God, I can't stand up. I said, the pain is just unbelievable. And I'd been so glowing that day, and because, you know, standing up, suddenly I'm in pain like this, and I really felt horrible. I was miles from home, and I just felt horrible. And he said, come with me. And he took me down this little flight of stairs, and he sat me on a chair, and he said, just go with the flow. He says, you know, usually I would say this, that, and the other. And all I know is he got me to hold my hair up and my chains, and he sort of zapped me here and he zapped me there. And then he said, right, stand up. And I was expecting not to be able to stand up properly because of the pain. And I stood up and I was upright, and he said, where's your pain now, between 1 and 10? And I just had to tell the truth. I said, it's gone. And he just gave me a big smile, and I was like, I can't believe this is gone. You know, and it's, you know, I'll be totally honest with you. I did not get any pain there until my husband injured his back, as you know, a few months ago. And because he was totally flat out and could do nothing, he has been my carer for the last 15 years. So suddenly the carer needed a carer. So I became the carer, but within 4 or 5 days, the problem had come back. But armed with my ski gnar, which we now have because we were so impressed, we bought one. You know, this thing is amazing, absolutely amazing. I've used it on my husband's back as well since his back injury, along with massage with the essential oils. And I got him walking again. I got him mobile in about 2 or 3 days. But when he came back from hospital, he couldn't even walk on a walking frame.
Wow.
So, you know, it's not just me, Clive. You know, it's not just me. It's sorted, you know. So the ski gnar, yes, it's an amazing piece of kit. It really is. It's, you know, a kind of...
You know, one can do the most amazing things with it.
Absolutely.
Reversing blindness being one of them.
You know, I feel now that this is where I need to be, is helping other people. Because, you know, I've been through it. I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be on this lot. And I know how it feels to go through coming off this lot. And now I know how it feels to be minus this lot. And, you know, I want to absorb as much information and knowledge as I can. My husband as well, because we feel passionately. This has not just changed everything for me. This has changed everything for my whole family.
But coming off dialysis is very important.
Well, yes, it seems a marvelous thing because so many people believe it's completely impossible. What would you advise kidney patients?
Well, first of all, I want to tell you what happened in medical school with kidney failure and kidney patients. I was taking a course on general medicine. We were covering hypertension, and we were getting a lecture on kidney disease, which is an end-stage complication of hypertension, and how you should advise a kidney dialysis patient to proceed. And so they told me, well, if a person has kidney failure, that means the kidneys are not processing water. Okay, sounds good. So we restrict their water to this amount of water per day. Okay, got it. Then we restrict their diet to this and that and the other thing. And I said, wait a minute. If I took a healthy person and put them on a diet you've just described, they're going to get kidney failure. And the instructor said, well, yes, that's true. I said, well, how can you put these people on this diet that we know causes kidney failure? He says, well, they already have kidney failure, so it's not a problem. And then I said, oh. Well, this is a naive 22-year-old, right? So I said, that's really complicated. I'm not going to bother with kidney failure patients because I don't feel comfortable putting them on a diet that's going to worsen their kidney failure. So that's the basic standpoint of dialysis, which is to give people a diet and a therapy that will keep them on dialysis. Now, I can't speak for England because I've only done research on the United States practice. The United States practice is to dialyze people Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 3 days a week, and doing hemodialysis. It's been found that dialyzing someone 7 days a week and using abdominal peritoneal dialysis, which they can do at home themselves, is much, much safer, much more effective, and gives a better quality of life. And so if you do the calculations, there's an excess of 50,000 deaths per year from dialysis patients just because of the way dialysis in the United States is done.
Wow. I had no idea that you could do dialysis at home.
Absolutely. Yeah, see, that's the... And that the safer, more effective dialysis is done at home. So now, the way dialysis is done at home is they put in a, called a tank off, but basically they put in a spout into your abdominal wall, and they pour dialysis fluid into the space between your intestines and your abdominal wall. You visualize that?
Yeah.
And then you lay there at night for 6 or 7 hours, and in the morning, you drain it out. And that's your home dialysis, which is not too bad.
Good.
Well, what I found was with vitality capsules, you increase the waste disposal in the liver, so the waste doesn't need to go over to the kidney for disposal. That's number one. So that immediately improved the quality of life for the dialysis patients. The next thing I did was I put them on frequent enemas 2 or 3 times a day. And what did that do? That turned the inside of the intestines into a dialyzing surface and took over the work of the kidneys.
Wow. And what fluid were you using for the enema?
I'd use salt water, 2 teaspoons salt per quart of water. And then if you want to take it another step further, what you have the person do is you have them drink 1 quart of water and then go into a sauna and sweat it out. And obviously they should drink salt water with some minerals. And then it pushes all the junk out into the skin that the kidneys would have dumped. And so if a person is willing to go into a sauna once a day, do a couple of enemas, they pretty much kind of got it made in the shade here.